So whether you're young or old, credit cards can be a very scary concept to wrap your head around. I mean, after all, it's not like our parents told us that credit cards are the devil, funded by the government to keep you in debt as long as possible. No, just me? Okay, great. But seriously, if you're new to credit cards, which I'm assuming you are since you clicked on this video, I personally like to compare credit cards to the age-old cliche of fire. When fire is not contained or controlled, it has the power to spread and burn everything around it. But when under controlled circumstances, fire can be very beneficial, such as being able to cook our food, allow us to live comfortably in colder climates, and of course can be used in pyrotechnics. And believe it or not, but credit cards can give you all of those same things as well. Well, maybe not the last one.
And they charge you about 25% interest. Let's teach them a lesson here. It seems to have held up so far. It's still intact.
But yes, I think it's one of the best analogies out there, and to prove the point, let me give you an example. And honestly, really pay attention to this point as it could save you years of heartache. So say a credit card gives you a $5,000 limit, which means if you wanted to, you could spend up to $5,000 on that credit card. But let's also say that you only have about $2,000 in your bank account. If you decided to just lose control and spend the total limit that the credit card gave you, there is no way within 1 month of time that you would be able to pay that back in full. And what would happen after that? They would be able to tack on interest every single month that balance wasn't paid in full. Which, at the current state of credit card interest rates, it would basically make it impossible to pay off that debt unless you had a high-paying job. So that's where FIRE credit cards are dangerous. But since you are watching this video and you want to learn, this will not happen to you. When you're first starting out and getting comfortable with credit cards, you should use no more than 5% of your total credit limit. That means that with the same $5,000 credit limit that they gave you, you should only be spending a maximum of $250 per month. At least until you know all of the risk and you are in full control of your spending. Which brings me to my next point. So some credit cards have annual fees and some credit cards don't. And we know the old saying that nothing in life is free. So there must be a way that credit card companies make their money on the cards that have $0 annual fees. A major way, which I just talked about earlier, is adding interest to your card, which is a sort of tax that gets tacked on to your balance at the end of each month if you don't pay the card in full. Although sometimes can be a little bit lower depending mainly on how high your credit score currently is and the actual card that you have itself. But since you are watching my video, I'm going to be bold here for a moment since you are my responsibility for as long as you're watching this video. Make sure to pay your credit card bill in full every single month. Multiple times a month. No exceptions. Doing this will easily allow you to build your credit score stress-free, without worrying about debt and interest charges, as well as just not getting in the habit of spending more money than you actually have. Trust me, you'll thank me in 3 years. So at this point, some of you might be asking, how do these credit cards actually affect me? And how do I even benefit from getting one? And I'm sure you've heard these two words a million times over the last few years on YouTube. But when you are responsible with your credit cards, you will get a high credit score. And that score has a range of about 300 on the low end to about 850 on the high end. These scores are basically the only way banks know whether or not that you are a good risk for the money they may or may not loan you. The higher the credit score, the more likely you are to pay back those loans on time as you've done it before. Make sense? The higher the score, the lower the interest rate, the cheaper and cheaper it is to borrow money when you need it in the future. And an 850 credit score being the highest is the holy grail of credit scores and has only been heard or talked about through fables and tales over the last 100 years. But seriously, if you know anyone with an 850 credit score, leave it down in the comments below. It's that rare. And 300 being the absolute rock bottom credit score is really given to people that really misuse their credit cards and borrow way too much without ever paying it back. Like ever. And on average, most people have about a 500 credit score when they first get started. And there are some special cases, like if you had student loans or if you were added on as an authorized user on your parents' credit card. You probably already established your credit score, which means it's probably higher than this already. So now that you have a quick fundamental understanding of how credit cards can help and hurt you, we can now proceed into how to actually get your first credit card, which is what the title suggests. So firstly, I would suggest for anyone that knows that they will not misuse their credit cards to get one as soon as possible. So 18 years old would be the earliest that you can get a credit card, unless like I said in special cases before where your parent added you on as an authorized user. But those would be the only other ways to improve your credit score if you're under the age of 18. But I guess it's good to know, and it's a special case nonetheless. And if you have any questions about that, the special cases, leave a comment down below and I'll be very happy to answer. But for everyone else that's 18 or older, the second thing you have to do is to get started on which card you actually want to apply for. So when I was 18 or 19 years old trying to apply for my first credit card, I did what most people do and made a lot of mistakes. I applied for many store cards like Target, Kohl's, or Sears because I thought that it would just be the easiest way to get a credit card and I would be able to do it in person. Well, I was wrong and I was denied for every single credit card that I applied for. Until I figured out this one thing. So it turns out that you actually have to have credit already to be approved for credit. Crazy, right? It's a total catch-22. So what did I do and what should you do from here? Enter secured credit cards. Secured credit cards are cards that require you to put some money down as a deposit. And usually you will get that same amount back as a credit limit. And in some cases, you'll actually get a credit limit higher than your deposit amount. For example, the first credit card I applied for was the Capital One secured card. I deposited $49 and they gave me a $200 credit limit. And it really doesn't even matter what the credit limit is, so long as you get approved for a credit card and you could start building your credit today. And these cards were made specifically for you to start building your credit. And also this way you'll be able to start building your credit and there's no risk to the bank at all because they hold your deposit. You know, just in case you want to take that $200 limit and run away to South America. I'm sure it happens all of the time. So with practically zero risk to the bank, they should approve you instantly and you can now start building your credit. So once you are approved and you get that card in the mail, use all of those tips that I showed you earlier in this video and in about a month or so, when you go to log in to your credit card account online, depending on the company that you're with, they should have a check your credit score option. And the one that I use, Capital One, had a weekly update to your credit score. They should actually credit you back your initial deposit so it's not lost forever. So your card should now be upgraded to unsecured, which means now you're just like the rest of us. So now, Capital One is not the only secured card on the market, as it was my first card and I do trust them a lot as I never had any issues with them. Another card on the market that I think is trustworthy would be the Discover It secured card. I think it's just overall a good choice for beginners and people that want to be approved instantly. And yes, it is still possible to get approved for an unsecured credit card as your first, but I wouldn't recommend this just for a couple of reasons. Well, for starters, when you make that initial deposit on a secured credit card, you tend to take things a little bit more seriously and will probably deter you from doing extra spending on that card. Number two, when you apply for any credit card, you get what's called a hard pull. These are basically any time that a bank takes a deep dive into your credit profile, which is a good thing because it's the only way that they can tell if they want to approve you or not. But these hard pulls also slightly tank your credit score in the short term, which of course is not good if you're trying to apply for your first card and you keep getting dinged lower and lower. And the third reason is pretty much don't be like me and just jump from store to store, as I never got approved for them anyway, and I ended up just wasting a lot of time and getting discouraged, which led me to not even try to get another credit card for another couple of years after that, which is all time that I could have been spending building my credit instead. So wrapping up, I think that this is the most seamless and easy way to get your first credit card. And I hope that by outlining at the beginning of this video the good and the bad for credit cards, that you'll be able to get ahead of your peers by starting your credit card journey early. And if you're 18 right now and you follow all of these tips, by the time you're 21, you'll have a high credit score and you'll be able to get approved for any loan for any car or home. At a low interest rate, of course. And at the end of the day, it's always better to get started now versus later. And you know what they say, the best time to get approved for a credit card was yesterday, but the second best time to get approved for a credit card is today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys learned a lot from this short breakdown. And if there are any questions or comments about anything in this video or anything in general, leave it down in the comments below and I'll be sure to respond to all of you. And of course, let me know if there's any other topics that you want me to venture into in the future. But with that said, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one.